All right. Thank you very much, PATV and Jim Palmer. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Welch School Building Committee meeting number 6. What you're watching this morning is a live meeting of the Welch School Building Committee, our OPM staff with Dorn Whittier, and then the staff of Danisco Design, who are the designers for this project. The meeting is being broadcast by PATV, and this is a Zoom conference call. Members of the public are welcome and encouraged to watch this meeting. However, today we won't be having public comment. We're going to start this morning. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to just take a quick attendance. Actually, I think I'll wait a few minutes on that. I can just take it from the list of attendees on the participants. And I'm just looking to see, we do have a quorum, so we're all set. I'm going to turn this over right now to ask if we could have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 13th meeting. These materials have all been sent out previously to members of the committee.
So moved, Beverly.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Mr. Hockman. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Joseph Scanlon. Is there any discussion or corrections or amendments to the minutes? All right, seeing none. We have to take a roll call vote as we are on remote. So I'm going to call the roll. Beth McGivern?
Here.
Okay, and do you approve the minutes?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, Jared Hockman?
Yes.
Okay, Joe Scanlon?
Yes.
Josh Vidala?
Yes.
Kara Migliozzi? Okay, I'm looking for, I know Kara's here. I can't hear her. Okay. Just a second, going through. Ed Colbert? Ed, you're muted if you want to vote.
Kara gave her vote in the chat.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Okay, thanks, Kara. Okay. Ed, I'm calling on you. Yes or no on the minutes? All right, we'll come back. All right. Michelle?
Yes.
Okay. Josh?
Have I already voted?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. This list just jumped on me. Ryan Melville?
Yes.
Okay. And I vote yes as well. All right. So the minutes are approved.
Have this Pete McGann. I'll vote
Oh,
yes on that as
Pete.
well.
Ah, you just popped up there. I'm sorry. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone I missed? Okay. As we all know, technology does have its limits, and it's some operator error on my part because this list changes on the participants. Thank you all for your patience. Okay. So, as far as previous topics, I think at this point I can just give you a very brief update because I do want to turn it over to Mike and the members of Dorn Whittier to lead us through a lot of the discussions with Danisco Design. But I will say this is the first meeting that we've been able to have everyone together from all three groups on a working meeting. So this is really a big step in the progress of the project. And one of the things that happened between last meeting and this was that we had a kickoff meeting with the MSBA last week. It's a very brief meeting, but they bring the principals together. And then they have a review of all of the steps involved going forward with the next pieces of the puzzle. And you'll hear more about that as we go along. But it was a very interesting meeting, very good. We are still on an aggressive timetable, and everybody is working diligently to stick with that. And there has been a lot of activity at the Welch School. If you live down there or work down there, you've probably seen people on site. You'll hear more about that from our design team. So what I'm going to do is turn this over and ask Mike Burton. Mike, if you would like to bring us up to date with the contract update and the
Sure.
existing conditions, and you go
Sure.
right ahead. Thank you.
Okay. So I think Christina has a summary on the next slide. So as this group knows, we had Danisco's contract sent in, and part of that contract is not just the designer services, there's also several sub-consultants. And so the contract that was submitted and approved contained within it estimates for many of these sub-consultants. And there's some examples right here on the screen, such as survey, geotech, structural, hazmat, and so forth. And so Donna and the Danisco team have since received hard bids where in the original contract we had some estimates in there. And so far, between the consultants that we have hard quotes or proposals for, we are showing that we're a little bit over, but we do have some remaining consultants left to go. So right now what's been submitted to the city is amendment number 1, and it was sent in on September 2nd. And the consultants included therein are survey, geotech, structural, hazmat, the ESA phase 1, wetland and soil testing. And so most of this work, as Bev pointed out, is already underway. And so right now we're showing that, based on the original estimates, we're forecasting that there could be an overage based on the original contract of $27,646. Again, there are remaining sub-consultants left to be addressed, so we may make up some of the delta there, but that remains to be seen. And Donna, do you recall who's left on Amendment 2? I thought we had a list on here, but there are a few sub-consultants left to go. So there will be a second amendment to reconcile the estimates compared to the actuals. Donna's muted. Okay, well, anyway.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
I think the placeholders that we had identified, we don't have actuals on some of the potential evaluations or kind of investigative. We'll know more as we realize how much we need. Wetlands is a big one, right? So right now we just have placeholders, and we'll be submitting actual costs as we are able to define the work.
Sure. I think the biggest delta was on the placeholders versus the actuals was on the site survey. Correct. Where we had looked at it 2 ways. There's the immediate vicinity around the school itself, which we called Area 1. And then there's the balance of the site down towards the fields and so forth. We call that Area 2. And so, we think collectively that it's a good idea to survey the entire site because, as you all know, we have to study these multiple options and solutions. And if we don't have that data down the road, we would be back here for this group asking for that to be done anyway. So we think it's important. It's good information for the city to have regardless. So that was the biggest delta between all of the sub-consultants. So just wanted to point that out. Are there any questions on that so far? Okay, hearing none. So what's the next slide, Christina?
It's the existing conditions update, which I'm going to switch over to Danisco's PowerPoint presentation. So just give me 1 second. And let me pull up that screen. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yes.
So I'm going to turn this over to Jeff.
Great, thank you both. Christina, you can go to number 3. So we'll be doing an existing conditions update that will consist of both the site and the building. Just as a refresher, this is an aerial view of the project site, the entire parcel, which Mike said we'll be surveying. The entire parcel is about 19.4 acres, and it's shared with the O'Connor Park and shows Mars Park down to the southeast, the golf course to the west, and vehicular access to the school is off of Swampscott Ave, across the vehicular bridge and across the Strongwater Brook. Pedestrian connections are up to Putnam Street, Hancock Street, Swampscott Ave, and then through O'Connor Park to Holmes Street and Mars Park. The existing building is centrally located at the north half of the site, with a long axis of the school running north-south and the classroom facing east and west. Strongwater Brook runs from the southernmost point of the site, and the water flows north up towards the bridge at Swampscott Ave and then east to the North River. Next, please. Great. Following a walkthrough with the landscape architect, the following are our primary summary of our observations regarding the existing conditions on the site. The first was vehicular pavement and curbing. It's generally bituminous concrete and showing signs of cracking and settlement. Is in poor condition throughout. The curbing consists of both granite and Cape Cod berm, and the granite is in better condition, but generally due to settlement of both the pedestrian and vehicular concrete, there's settlement gaps, cracking, etc., which is pretty typical of this stuff at 50 years old. Also, the porous pavement parking lot, which is the parent parking lot at the school, is generally clogged with debris and most likely functioning at a reduced rate. Around the school, there are about 74 parking spaces, and those are distributed through the main staff lot in front, the parent lot closer to the park, and then there are about 8 spaces kind of around the loading dock of the building. Recreation areas. The hardscape is in poor condition, which is generally the same as the vehicular concrete with bituminous cracking, settlement, patching, etc. The play structures are actually in pretty good condition, and those have been reported to us as being less than 10 years old. So reuse of those either on the site as part of the project or at another site should be considered going forward. One drawback was that the play structures don't have any accessible play areas, and that the benches that are within the play area and bicycle racks are generally inaccessible. The bike racks I haven't seen in use at all. Granted, this is kind of an unusual time. Those are behind some planting beds in the front of the school. Landscaping and plantings. Most trees are in good or fair health, mostly consisting of white pines, oaks, ashes, and maples. And we could work with an arborist to restore the health of those trees in fair condition, and some will have to be removed due to their declining health, but we'll get into that more as part of the project. And we did observe some invasive plant species along the property line up to Putnam Street.
You don't understand me at all.
And there are some invasive species along Strongwater Brook, which we'll also study with the wetland scientist and landscape architect.
Oh, you told
There are also two memorials on the site with some memorial trees.
What is this meeting supposed to be?
And we should consider those going forward. Next slide, please. So as part of our understanding of the existing conditions of the building, we've generated some existing floor plans based on the existing drawings provided by the city, and also field measurements that we've taken over a couple of field visits. You can see here that the administration and nurse are located towards the center of the building in green, with the library behind them in light yellow. The cafeteria is located to the left, which is really the north, with the stage and kitchen attached. The gym is also located in the core, shown in red on the right-hand side. And all of the classrooms in this building occupy the perimeter of the building. There are 16 classroom size spaces on the first floor, and then there are 8 on the second floor. And the grades are clustered with grades pre-K through grade 3 on the first floor and grades 4 and 5 on the second. This is also useful in the first steps of the programming process to understand what the current space usage is. The next slide shows just shows the second floor. We can go to that. And there's the second floor. Next slide, please. So we visited the site with the entire design team, from the technology consultant to the mechanical engineer. The mechanical systems, we've determined that all of the systems are past their useful life. If you think of the building as 50 years old, with most of the original systems installed, with a life of 20 to 30 years, they're past their useful life by about 20 to 30 years. The second system there listed is plumbing systems, and the same applies to that. Electrical communications and data, also more of the same. The structural engineer has visited the site and is in the process of developing a computer model to analyze the existing structure and for potential renovations and additions going forward. Hazardous materials sampling has also been completed, and the samples are at the lab, and that report is being generated. Also, a code analysis has been completed of the building. Next, please. Ongoing work and next steps. Next. So as Bev mentioned, there have been a small army of people doing work on the site. The site survey is ongoing. The wetland scientist has been out there to flag the wetlands and the riverfront boundaries. That is almost completed. The next step will be for the surveyor to go out there and survey those, and for us to walk the site with someone from the Conservation Commission. Today and tomorrow, the borings and test pits will be completed around the building. And after those results are back, the geotechnical engineer will generate her report. As I mentioned earlier, the structural engineer is currently developing a building model and analyzing the structure of the building. And then we've also been working with the gas company to determine what the natural gas service looks like in the area. Just because that tends to move pretty slowly, we just want to have that in our back pocket if needed. And the next steps will be to establish the educational program, consider a renovation addition, and new construction as required by the MSBA, and then also to evaluate swing space. This is high level of next steps, but these next steps are pretty exciting, and we're looking forward to it. Donna and Vivian, feel free to jump in and supplement.
No, Jeff, that was great. Thank you. We have a high-level visioning meeting with superintendent scheduled for Wednesday of next week. So we're excited to get that component going. That really is going to help us determine how we can reuse the building going forward and what additional spaces are required to meet that educational program. And I guess that might just take us into the timeline that we've modified. I don't know if Christina or Mike want to talk about the timeline. And what we also had actually our MSBA kickoff meeting last week, which affirmed when we need to get our submittals to them. The first one's preliminary design program, and they need time to review it, followed by the preferred schematic report, which is really the study. And so I'll let Dawn Whittier take that over, but based on our conversation meeting with MSBA, we've had to rejigger the schedule a little bit to meet their requirements.
Yeah, so just sort of a recap from the MSBA kickoff. As Donna said, there's two main deliverables that require MSBA review and approval before you proceed to the next step. Preliminary design program, which is where you take a look at all the various options, reno, add reno, and new, and there can be many variations of each. And so the PDP is the first thing to go in and the timelines and the dates that the MSBA informed us about were very, very aggressive. And I think that for us to do a thorough job and be thorough and make sure we're, doing the best we can, the timeline here represents what we think is the most aggressive schedule that we can maintain moving forward. And so, Donna, do you just want to walk through the PDP and the input involved and the ed programming and sort of the work that is involved to pull that together?
Sure. I also just want to dovetail on Mike's comments about the MSBA submissions. When we originally had anticipated submitting, we thought we were going to be able to submit in January for the preferred schematic report. When we got their actual dates that they released for 2021, it really was, they don't take into consideration that we're working with school districts where, forget about the second half of January where we needed final input and evaluation and confirmation. So that was really part of the analysis and understanding how we were going to meet their schedule. But the first phase is really focuses on the design, the educational program. And given today's environment and all of the other distractions, we decided that it was really important to make sure that we provided enough time to make sure that we were able to fully vet the vision for this project. So the educational program is really the basis of design, and we want to make sure that we are able to fully understand what the goals are, not only for the current program, but if there are any other additional programs that we may have an opportunity to incorporate as part of the design. The ed program talks about the types of programs that are in the building, and actually MSBA also wants to understand all of the programs at the elementary school level throughout the district. So this document really forms the basis of what kind of spaces we need going forward. As Jeff pointed out, this is a pretty straightforward, double-loaded corridor, built in the 60s, and we know education is not really delivered in that fashion anymore. So we really want to spend some time to better understand what the vision is for the district and how we can reuse those spaces to meet today's educational program. And so that will take us through. We're anticipating if we can get it done sooner, that's awesome. But again, we want to make sure we get it right. So hand in hand with the space summary, which is MSBA's guidelines on the square footages of the spaces, the quantity of spaces, we anticipate taking that through mid-October. And while we're doing that, we can spend further time and working in tandem with that to evaluate the existing conditions. And because we really anticipate reusing the school, we really need to do our due diligence. And the site development will be key because we need to understand the limitations of the site as it relates to wetlands. And we have the riverfront coming through it and everything. So we just need to understand what we can and can't do on this site. And then after we understand what the educational program is and the vision for this project, we'll start putting together some various evaluation of alternatives. Some of them we understand are going to be non-starters. MSBA has certain requirements they want us to check, such as are there any other facilities in the district that we can reuse? Is there school choice that we can talk about? I mean, some of these things are just checking off the box, but the real part will be looking at all the various opportunities that we can pull together, reusing the existing building to form the basis of the program going forward. And we'll be presenting those to you. And of course, some of those are going to be non-starters, but at least we want to explore all options and then hone in on our, at minimum 3, a repair, a renovation, addition, and that might have many forms. And then of course, we do have to go through the exercise of a new school. If we have no swing space or the kids can't be relocated, that will immediately come off the table once we realize we can't even develop more than 50% of the site. But we'll go through that exercise with you all and determine what we feel are the best options to continue to explore going forward. So that's really the bulk of our first 90 days of work. And we'll be working closely with the school department to make sure that any designs will meet their educational program and vision.
Yeah, so while it's up on the screen, the deliverables that we spoke about to MSBA, those are represented with the green symbols. So yeah, right there. So that's the first one going in mid-November, and from the time you submit these to the time you get them back, several weeks go by. You have to allow certain duration for the MSBA to perform their reviews and then ultimately approve them at a board meeting. And so now that we have those dates and we have some input from the MSBA, you know, this is the timeline as best we can tell right now. We think that this is still very aggressive, and it's going to take a lot of involvement from the school department and understanding the complications of COVID and figuring out what the city is doing across the district. It's, you know, we understand that it's going to be a little bit cumbersome. We're going to do everything we can to help the process, but as Donna said, the educational program is really, that is the roadmap for the job, and the MSBA continually goes back to the educational program to confirm that everything we're doing along the way through all the modules aligns with that. So it's very important we get that right. And so I know Donna's working on drafting that up, and she'll be working with superintendent and Michelle and the rest of the department. And so that is now underway. So are there any questions on what's shown on the screen right now?
I want to point out that the schedule represents weeks. So it looks like there's a lot of time in there, but there really isn't that much time. And what we do want to make sure is that we, in working with Bev and the school building committee, that we align our working group meetings as well as our building committee meetings so that when we come back to you, we have sufficient information to have a meaningful conversation with you. So we've indicated that, you know, ideally we have working group meetings bi-weekly. The building committee meetings should be monthly, at minimum once a month. We've tried to align those based on when we think we're going to have information to share and discuss with you. And I think right now the biggest challenge is fitting yet another complicated, important project with the school department while they're trying to kick off the school year. So we have a little bit of time. MSBA is saying we must submit the preferred schematic report or the feasibility study by February 11th for the MSBA to review it, and then what their board meeting actually occurs in April.
Yeah, and I just want to let everyone know too
I
that
have a
all of this
question about the
information.
MSBA procedures.
Oh, if Deanne, if you can hang on one second, Christina, go ahead, make your statement, and then I'll go to Deanne.
Hello?
Sure, no, I just wanted to let everyone know that all of this material is on the FTP site. So if you go into the meeting folder, it provides you with all of the backup for the work plan, the schedule, the presentations, the amendments, etc. So if you have any questions following our meeting, you want to take a look at a document and you have any questions that come up, please feel free to reach out to us and let us know.
And they are very easy to find. I guarantee that. Dan, do you just go ahead? Thank you, Christina.
Yeah, I have a question about MSBA procedures and the submittals that we have to do. Are there on any of those, whether it's the PDP or the preferred schematic, does it require the school committee or both?
Yeah, so Dan, you were breaking up a little bit. I don't know if that was just my computer or not, but I think your
I think it was
question
Dean.
was, are there votes required by the SBC for these deliverables? If that is the question, the answer is yes. Every submission has to be approved by the SBC. And so down at the bottom, you can see that we have some recommended SBC meeting dates. Those are not cast in concrete. We can be flexible, but right now we're projecting roughly once a month type of a scenario. And so you'll see before each of the MSBA deliverables, there's a preceding SBC meeting to approve that document. And so does that answer your question, Dan?
Yeah, we need to coordinate the building committee schedule with the submittals to the MSBA so that we stay in the loop on that.
Absolutely.
Correct.
And Dan, just to add to that, as far as school committee is concerned, or even city council for that matter, right? MSBA requires the superintendent to sign off on some of the documents, as well as the school building committee chair, as well as, I think it's the CFO, which what I would assume would be the mayor. So although we don't have to have meetings, we just need signatures. Of course, we want to keep the school committee and even city council informed throughout the process. So we'll work with you all, what you feel is the best time to present, even just updates to the city council and of course the school committee. And again, recognizing what everyone else is going through, we'll work with you to squeeze it in as the school year kicks off. The other thing too is it's really important to engage the community. We've identified a couple of suggested times. Those aren't cast in stone either. We can talk further to discuss when it's appropriate to go to the community to inform everyone of where we are with the process and get feedback, have an opportunity for feedback before we submit to the MSBA.
And just to add to that, so folks realize the votes that are required going forward in the near future are the votes of this committee. If we had to have votes of the city council and the school committee, we need to look at a schedule where we prepared for those votes 6 to 8 weeks, which is 2 months before submittal. And I will say that right now, only having to come to the school building committee for votes is one of the good aspects of the current calendar, that we're able to complete this kind of work and be very, very timely without having to have those huge time frames built in for the votes of the school committee and the city council. So your votes, and we will make sure when there is a vote needed of the school building committee, we'll make sure to highlight that to everyone so that 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 vote will be taking place at the school building committee meeting, so you can be here for the discussions and make sure that you're present for that vote. And one other item, planning for the presentation to the public, the neighborhood meetings, all the things that normally go on with a project, those are in the works, and a lot of it is being driven by the actual project timelines, because you want to be able to give people good information when you bring the public in. And also hanging in the room on every single decision right now is COVID, how best to be able to reach out to the neighbors, how to do this presentation. We've talked, with PATV and being able to have a presentation on cable, a video presentation. There are a lot of different factors going into the neighborhood meetings. I'll just classify them that way, that we didn't do in the past. We would just post a meeting and have everybody at Higgins. Everybody would come to Higgins and sit in the auditorium, and we'd have a great presentation, watch a PowerPoint, ask questions, and that was simple. Now it's still simple, but we just have to be able to get everything on camera and on the platforms that are available. So that is all in the works. You'll all be starring in a future episode of the Welch School Building Project. So be prepared. Mike, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, so I think we're good with this. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint.
Yep, just give me a moment.
I think we're at the budget update.
Yep. So we just wanted to provide you, we had said in the past that we would provide you an update as far as, invoices that have been submitted to the city for payment. And so to date, Dorn Whittier has submitted 5 invoices, and we anticipate we'll receive Danisco's first invoice in October. So that's kind of just a snapshot of where we are with invoices. And then I'm going to go to the next slide and turn it over to Mike Cox, who's going to talk about kind of our feasibility and schematic design budget to date as well.
Thanks, Christina. So yeah, this is just a quick snapshot of where we are today. So as you know, you had $1.2 million allocated for feasibility and schematic design. With the approval of Danisco's base contract of $500,000, we've applied that, and it leaves us with $425,000 for the 2 amendments that we had mentioned earlier. It's well within the budget, so that is the great news. There's not too much to report here, but we did want to just keep you up to date on where we are financially.
Yeah, so just to add to that, so in feasibility and schematic design, in terms of MSBA and pro-pay reimbursements, there's really only these 4 cost codes right now. So in terms of the budget, it's very simple at this point. Once we get into construction, this greatly expands, and we can provide tutorials on how to view this, but our goal is to provide a complete update at every one of the SBC meetings, provide the detail and the backup, give anybody on the committee the opportunity to review and ask questions. And so this simple looking report is going to become a lot more robust as we move into later modules. But this will be something that you'll continue to see at each SBC. So any questions, please let us know. Okay, so I think that's what we had planned. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say our next agenda item is any other topics. I'm not sure if there are anyone from the SBC that has anything that they'd like to discuss today.
I just had one question and one comment. Jeff, in your presentation regarding walking the site and looking at the pervious pavement in the parking lot, just a little bit of history that went in about 10 years ago. So I don't know if that helps you at all, but the question I have for you is, in your evaluation that's going to take place with the wetland scientist, is there going to be an evaluation as to the functioning of that pervious pavement?
We'll take a look at, we can take a look at that a little bit closer. Just upon a visual inspection, it looked like it may have been either not vacuum. Sometimes you have to periodically vacuum it. It may have been inadvertently sanded during the winter. That was what the landscape architect might have thought. So we can take a look and see how that's functioning, and quite honestly, if maintenance potentially would be an issue going forward, maybe we have to consider other options for infiltration in lieu of making the entire site pervious pavement and creating a large ongoing maintenance item for the city, especially if it were to fail and not function as expected. So we'll continue to take a look at that and the options going forward.
So I just wanted to add to that. And so as we gather all the existing conditions information, we will take everything into account and then look at the site as a whole. And it's very likely that we're going to redesign that site slightly and potentially add more parking. My my understanding is that we're likely to redo that parking area, because as our wetland scientist really digs into what's needed for stormwater, that porous pavement, or at least a porous pavement parking lot, may really be necessary in order to gather enough area for infiltration. So we'll be looking at how to use the site as best we can for underground structures, as well as the use of the porous pavement lot. So as an existing lot, as Jeff said, that it needs a little bit of TLC, but in its final layout, it's very likely that it's going to be redone and enlarged and may shift slightly. But that's kind of the next steps after we gather all of the existing conditions information. It's our background, and armed with that and the program, we can develop several options for consideration that we put some numbers onto that help us assess each option.
It was the first porous pavement that the city put in. So there may be some maintenance issues with regard to it, in the sense that there wasn't a lot of history or familiarity with how to treat that as compared to impervious pavement by maintenance or DPW or whomever maintains that parking lot. So there may be some need for a little direction on how to do that. I was on the Conservation Commission when we approved that parking lot, and it was done intentionally due to the stormwater brook that sits right there. And it may be the only porous pavement that on any municipal space in the city still. I'm not sure of that, but I just wanted to
or at least on the schools.
Yeah, at least in the schools for sure. And we did get some positive feedback in terms of the ice melt or snow melt in that lot, because water was able to drain, obviously, when sunlight was present. So, and then the only other comment I have is for Ms. Danisco, Donna Danisco. I know that we're going to look at swing space in the analysis of what recommendation is going to come out in terms of new construction or reno or addition. Swing space is a whole new has a whole new view post COVID 2020, because swing space is now remote learning. All of our students do have Chromebooks. The city or the school department did acquire hotspots for connectivity through grants. So it may be less of an issue, maybe a less attractive option, but it is an option. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, Jared, thank you. That's a great starting point and a great conversation to have with the superintendent. I was just listening last night that people were saying that snow days may be of yesteryear, right? Because now everyone's so well equipped to have remote learning that there may never be a snow day again. I don't know. But so maybe something good's come out of this whole COVID. I'm not quite sure. Sorry, Josh.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, swing space is a very large component of this. So, we envision that, if we were, let's just assume that it's a reno or an ad reno, that doing that work while students are in the building is going to be very complex, and without knowing the extent of what the educational program is going to tell us, we believe it's going to tell us that there's some more space that's needed, and that means you're pushing more towards the ad reno piece. And if that's the case, based on the building and site, one of the options that I think this committee may have seen before at the Danisco presentation was adding space over the first level as you look at the building, and doing that level of work will require some displacement. And so, pre-COVID, one of the first things people would look at would be modulars, and nobody likes modulars. The costs are not reimbursable. And so swing space is a big factor. We need to think about options, and you're absolutely right. Maybe we're going to come out of COVID with a new sense of being able to deal with that. But it's a very big cost on any project. There is no MSBA reimbursement. So the more ideas that we can come up with right now to help us mitigate that, the better. So excellent point.
And if I may, just to follow up on Jared's original statement about the parking lot, you may want to check right after it was installed. It was not properly treated in the winter, and the parking lot failed. And we were told it was replaced. Whether it was replaced or whether they did have to come in and clean it out, I'm not sure. But that may be the second layer or second go at that impervious parking lot, if that has any impact on what you're doing in that area, just so you know that.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other topics or questions? Okay. I know, Bev, you had said that we are not doing public comment today.
Right. I don't think anyone called in. I'm checking the participant screen and I haven't seen anyone call in.
Yeah, I didn't see anyone either.
No. So I think that we can move along on the agenda.
So just the next item is our next meeting. So we have planned 10/8 at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we'll be sending out a meeting invite to the full SBC for that meeting.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And
that's it for today.
I will say one point on that, the 9 a.m. meeting on the 8th, we will keep an eye on the school calendar, the school schedule. That time may need to be addressed. We'll know fairly quickly if we need to change from 9 a.m. to possibly 10 a.m., maybe even just 9:30, just that I know that Michelle, her teachers and other people who are involved at the elementary level, that's one of the toughest times because it's right when the school doors open. So if we're back in person, we'll have to figure that one out. They're going hybrid right now, so that time comes into play. But we'll try to work with the school, make sure that works out. Just so Michelle knows that.
Michelle, are you still on the meeting?
Yes, I am.
So does 9:30 work better for you for our meeting time moving forward?
It is whenever we're in session, yes. Anything later is better. 9 o'clock's morning announcements and all of that good stuff. It's when we get the party started.
Okay, so what we'll do is moving forward, we can change our meetings to 9:30 just to accommodate this full SBC and to make sure that everyone can join. So we'll make sure that we change that moving forward to 9:30.
Okay, great.
Okay. Thanks, Christine. Yeah.
Bev, it's Pete.
No
Okay,
problem.
so it's 9:30 on what date? October
8th.
Thank you.
October 8th.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. And does anyone else have anything that they'd like to bring up? All right, then I think we can adjourn at 9:51 a.m.
Thank you, everyone, for your time today. We appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions, please just let us know.
Thank you,
Thanks, everyone.